So welcome everybody to the December indoor meeting, Raleigh Astronomy Club. Any first-time members or people joining? I see lots of familiar faces in the room. No. If you want to go do that. Sorry, was that live streaming? I forgot to start that. So tonight is going to be a little bit different than the rest of the meetings throughout the years. The imaging showcase, I'll introduce it in a moment. We have a lot of images from imagers. I think we probably won't take questions, Chris, or probably no questions. So ignore the question bit here. We just probably won't have time. Uh-oh. Anna, could you go to the next slide, please? All right, safety, room hazards next, or are we, okay, there's cables behind the projector, we've covered them. Watch out for chairs with bags next to them. We have pretty low lights, especially in the front. So be aware of your surroundings. Is there anybody CPR first? Okay, we have a CPR certified individual over here. Emergency caller, anybody? Dana, thank you. Fire equipment. So we have a fire extinguisher near the door in the back here. And remote attendees, please be aware of your surroundings. We have 2 exits out of this room. Over here, there's near the chairs that are stacked, there's an exit, and if you go out the hallway and turn left, there's an exit. Okay, upcoming events. So we have the, Frank, you're in the way, sir. You sit. We have the Willard on the 18th of December. We have the Starry Night Party on January 4th. And I should have put, we have Astronomy Days, which we'll have more in the business meeting to discuss the status of that on February 1st and February 2nd. We have socializing after the meeting at Sammy's. And now, the presentation for tonight. Drum roll. All right. So tonight, Chris Cole is going to be leading the imaging showcase. He's been with the club since 2007, started as a visual observer, and was ecstatic with the results of holding a point-and-shoot camera up to a telescope's eyepiece, which has snowballed into him being like one of the longest-running imagers, with most prolific imagers within the Raleigh Astronomy Club. So he's headed up the imaging group in RAC for last many years, was club co-chair for 4 years, and is currently the coordinator with the museum for Astronomy Days 2025. So Chris, all yours.
Wow. That was not quiet. Okay. All right. Hello, guys. Okay. Yeah. So I might have, or I have my introduction here. So today we're going to take a look at what some of our imagers have submitted to show what their best images were from this year. And this is something we do every year. So I want to warn everybody that who will be presenting tonight that we had a lot of images submitted this time. So we need to move swiftly. So yeah, let's just go ahead and move on quickly. Yeah, next slide. What's up? Yeah, just so you know that we will be setting a timer. So what was it, like 8 minutes per person? Okay, all right. So 8 minutes per person. We have what, 6 or 7? We have 7 people who submitted images. So each person will have about 8 minutes. Go. All right, next slide. Okay, so first is me. There is the sun. I like to say the that 2024 was all about the sun. We had comets, which would not be viewable without the sun. We had auroras, which would not be viewable without the sun. We had a solar eclipse, which would not be significant without the sun. So next slide. So here I thought I don't have many images to show, but so I thought I'd throw in a little bit of science. Here you have a bark magnet. As some of you may know that when it comes to just the properties of matter from the atomic level, that any object that has, or any matter that has a charge will emit a magnetic field. In the case of a bark magnet, well, the atoms aren't really moving, but all of the electrons, which have negative charges, are moving in the exact same direction. So you get to see what the magnetic field sort of looks like for a bark magnet. I'm sure everybody's seen this kind of picture. So you can kind of make out the magnetic field lines in it. And that leads me to my first image. So next slide. And this is the solar eclipse from April 8th of this year. And if you just look around carefully to, mostly around the perimeter, very closely to the perimeter of the moon slash sun, which is, obscured by the moon. That's what an eclipse is, solar eclipse is, right? You'll see the little magnetic field lines. That's what the composition of the sun is. The sun is essentially just a giant mass of boiling atoms. And at the center, you have some protons, which have the positive charges, and they get smashed together and make new nuclei. Two protons smashed together equal the atomic number of helium. So you get helium from nuclear fusion. And but meanwhile, everything's like churning, all around the sun with negatives and positive charges, positives, repelling. Likewise, negatives repelling, and positives and negatives attracting each other, and just pulling it back down to the sun's surface and whatnot. So that's just basically what's kind of nice about the sun's corona. It teaches you all about the magnetic field and whatnot. So next slide. And here I have what I like to term as the solar wavelength table. So we have three wavelengths of the sun imaged through three different filters. First, I filtered for the wavelength of 540 nanometers. This was using a Herschel wedge, and the camera I used was the ASI 174 mm. A lot of people know about that, how great of a camera that is for imaging and solar. So 540 nanometers, yes, some of you, if you acutely understand the electromagnetic spectrum, that's actually a green area, but colloquially, a lot of people like to just false color this as yellow. So, but it gives you a nice look at the photosphere, which is the surface of the sun, and some good detail of the sunspots. Next one down is 393 nanometers for the calcium K line. There are trace elements other than hydrogen and helium on the sun. And in this case, when calcium is under the influence of all the energetic properties of nuclear fusion that happens on the sun, it emits a wavelength emits a light wavelength of 393 nanometers, which is actually pretty close to ultraviolet light. So this filter, if you actually look at it visually, you barely can really see any detail, but because the camera is mono and we're filtering for one wavelength, you can see this detail here. So, and finally, hydrogen alpha, which is probably the most popular wavelength of the sun, 656 nanometers, is deep red. We brighten it up a little bit. Again, that's the false color that a lot of people choose to show the sun in all its dynamic detail with hydrogen alpha. You get to look at the little filaments. Those are the little streaks that are on the surface, and you can probably see filaments that are off to the side on the limbs of the sun, and that's in that case, the filaments are no longer termed filaments anymore. They're called prominences. The biggest thing I wanted to note here is the active region on the right side. Next slide. And so here's a close-up of that area. And so once again, you can see kind of what all wavelengths can show you differently. But the most important thing about active regions is, just as their namesake is, they propel a lot of charges out into space. Because remember, like I showed you with the bark magnet, moving charges give off magnetic fields. And in the case of an active region of a sunspot group, they're going to just twist up their magnetic fields and fling matter out into space. And if you look at the data up there, 12th May of 2024, when you fling matter out into space, there is a chance that we will intercept it. And so next slide, what do you get? Auroras, yay. So May 10th, so 2 days after that image I just took, I was like, okay, so we got the auroras, and I heard about this in the news. So we were arranging flowers at my family's astronomy, nope, uh, strawberry farm, and I knew that the auroras could possibly show themselves, and I went out and I just freaked out. This is like the first time I had ever seen auroras. Didn't know how to photograph them, so this picture wasn't quite as crisply detailed as I had thought it'd be. But once again, it's like going back to all the images I just presented. It goes to show you exactly what the sun can do to the entire solar system. You know, we had that active region that you saw previously. We had the eclipse that allowed you to see the twisted and absolute chaotic magnetic field of the sun, and the magnetic field in this case made it to Earth, and Earth siphoned it into its north and south poles, and eventually it was so strong, the geomagnetic level 4, which is pretty rare, put auroras all the way down here in North Carolina. So that's all I have. Okay, next up we have Johnny Horne. I don't see him in here. Is he out there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Take it away. Next
Okay.
slide. Next.
Okay. Okay. I had a cloudier eclipse than Chris did. I was in Fredericksburg, Texas, with a sky and telescope tour. We had written off seeing the eclipse until the eclipse happened because it was cloudy all the time, varying degrees of cloudiness. But during totality, everybody got to see the eclipse. The clouds thinned enough to allow us to see totality. This is the incoming diamond ring done with a 500 millimeter lens and a Nikon D850 just outside Fredericksburg. Next. Okay, and this is the aurora of May 10th. This is north of Stedman, northern Cumberland County. And this is a 4-image mosaic stitched panorama of the northern sky from west to east during the height of the aurora. And I got the crescent moon in the picture, just like Chris did. But very, very fine display photographically, less so naked eye, but very, very nice and very predictable. We were pretty sure we were going to see the aurora on that evening, less so for the next evening. Okay, next. Oh, there's more. There's an aurora. That's me in the foreground taking a picture of it with my iPhone. This is at a 450-acre field north of Stedman, where I set up my telescope many times over the last 40 years. And this is probably near the peak of the display. There's a little model airplane flying field there. That's why the windsock is there. This is a 10-second exposure with a Nikon D850 and a 14 millimeter lens. And next. Okay, the comet. I'll just call it Comet A3. I'm not sure I can pronounce it right. Never have been sure. But on October the 14th, the conditions were, the geometry was favorable so that the comet's antitail, sunward pointing tail, would be most concentrated and most well defined. And so I was at a lake on some state game land in Bladen County, about 30 minutes south of my home. And this is about a 5 minutes total exposure with an 8-inch Celestron Rasa astrograph. And the antitail was visible on several nights before and after this, but it wasn't as sharply defined as it was on the 14th when the geometry was just right for it. Next. Okay, this is two evenings before at the same lake. This is just with a camera on a tripod, 6-second exposure with a 135 millimeter lens during evening twilight. We had a good opportunity to see the comet over multiple nights, even though it was pulling away from us after the 12th of October. But there were very few cloudy nights during the whole month of October. So we had a great opportunity to see it in the evening sky. And I went to this lake, I guess 5 times during October. Easy naked eye at this time. Reflection of the comet and Venus. Venus is off camera at the left. But a very cool sight and a very nice comet. Next.
So just so you guys know, move pretty swiftly. Go ahead,
Okay.
Johnny. Sorry.
Okay. And this is the 15th. This is actually the 15th, I think. Went out to Cape Lookout to catch the comet above the lighthouse when it was cloudy, and the clouds parted long enough for me to get this shot. That's the almost full moon illuminating the lighthouse out at Cape Lookout. Next. And this is back at the Bladen County Lake. This is an iPhone 15 picture of our rig set up on the eastern shore of the lake looking at the comet. This is an amateur friend of mine from near the Fayetteville area with his camera on my star tracker. So it gives you an idea. This is a handheld 5-second exposure with an iPhone. Next. And this is M22 that I shot this past summer with my 14-inch Meade telescope from my backyard in Stedman. M22 is right in the thick of the summer Milky Way, so there are a lot of stars in M22 and a lot of stars around it. Okay, next. This is M81 with the same telescope, 14-inch Meade. Got up real early in January of this year to catch it as it crossed the meridian when it was highest in the sky. And this is about 2 hours worth of 5-minute exposures. Next. Much the same thing with M51 here. This is a couple of hours of exposure with the 14-inch Meade scope. Using an ASI 2600 MC camera with most of these images like this of this field of view. Next. And this is through the same scope, a little tighter view of the Pac-Man Nebula that shows some of the dust lanes and the finer detail. First time I'd shot this object at a long focal length like that. The focal length is about 2,800 millimeters. Next. Okay, this is the wonderful lunar eclipse we had in September when I think it was 8 or 9% of the moon was within the umbra. But this is shot with a 180 millimeter Maxitov telescope and a ASI 294 camera that's at greatest eclipse when the maximum coverage of the umbra was happening. Okay. Next. And this is, again, with the 14-inch Meade, this is the Wizard Nebula. Clouds cut me short on this one. This is only about 10 5-minute exposures through some a very aggressive light pollution filter, an Optolong L Extreme filter in the 14-inch Meade. This is something I had never shot before, and that is one of Saturn's satellites, the shadow of one of Saturn's satellites, in this case, Titan, transiting the planet in June 30th, with the 14-inch Meade. In March of next year, we pass through the ring plane of Saturn, so the rings are exactly edge on in March. But this was kind of cool with the shadow of Titan. I've shot a lot of Jupiter satellites transiting the planet, but not Saturn's. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Johnny.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, that last picture was pretty compelling. I'd just like to remind everybody in 2025 that same instance will be occurring here. I haven't looked to see how many times it'll be viewable here in North Carolina, but for all those who like planetary imaging, yeah, see if you can catch that Titan shadow going in front of Saturn's, because yeah, we won't get another chance for almost another 15 years. So, all right, up next is Naveen Malik. You're here.
I am here. All right. So I'm going to be running too many things here, so hopefully I get it right. So first image is of the Seagull Nebula with Thor's helmet in the bottom. I've spent several years trying to get a picture of Thor's helmet with different telescopes, and like just due to conditions that, I was either changing my rig out and couldn't get a complete set of data or complete enough. So I think this is the first time I got Thor's helmet, so that was really fun. And having it in the context of the larger nearby nebulosity is cool to me. Really enjoy it. So this is, I think, the only wide field I have in this set. It's a 125 millimeter, 135 millimeter Rokinon camera lens. And then I finally did get Thor in my C8. So this is an orange tube, according to the serial number, probably manufactured in 1985. That's an orange tube Celestron C8 with monochrome imaging. So this is in false color with RGB stars. Let me see how much time. 16 hours total on this guy. What I like about this, just the kid in me. I think of Monsters Incorporated. I don't know if people have seen Mike Wazowski. If he was slightly blue, it kind of looks like an eye in the middle of the ball with little arms, like he's dancing like a ballerina. So yeah, I enjoy that movie. So the Galactic Hiker. This is in the Sol Nebula. Again, with the same Celestron C8. So the tiny little dark nebula nestled between, looks like two mountain peaks. And that I've always enjoyed getting pictures of that at different focal lengths. This is the longest focal length I've been able to do. And it's in false color with, I think, RGB stars. I tried to get in a kind of like a blue background, kind of representing air or sky. That would be the oxygen 3, which I think Marshall is processing now and finding to be very, very faint. But very fun target. This was a top pick on Astrobin, which isn't a picture of the day, but it's like the first stage of getting there. I've never gotten a picture of the day. Maybe someday. All right, Crab Nebula. This is in SHO. So this is sulfur 2, hydrogen alpha, and oxygen 3. And I put them all together, and in a LARC, I just did a very simple stretch, unlinked, and came up with this. I'm like, okay, I want to make that picture and make it better. It kind of looks like a bubble imploding, like the colors, with the light refracting off like a soap bubble. So that was fun.
Naveen, I just want to interrupt here. Sorry. I saw this on Astrobin. I'm sure you have seen it too. So Mark Lang, who's going to be with us tonight, has gone out and taken an image of a special kind of star every year. I encourage you to go and try to image this every year, because you probably know where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
People have actually seen movement in the supernova remnant over the years. So
Yeah. Could be a good 10, 20-year project.
yeah, do it. 20 years. Yeah.
I have thought of doing that. That would be really cool. Because I've seen some people's time lapses over time, and it's really neat. You can actually see it moving. Um, so next, Fetus Nebula. Again, a Astrobin top pick. This one, so I started going after smaller targets with the C8 because I could, and I didn't expect much with this one because it seemed like it was going to be pretty small. This is just in color, RGB, only 6 hours total, which for me is not much. I recently processed, I think my last picture is like 45 hours in this data set. But it turned out really cool. You can kind of see that it does look like a fetus, which is maybe disturbing to some, but anyway, um, quite happy with how it turned out. This is the Derelict group in the top right, and the Stefan's quintet in the bottom left. This is with, I got a Edge HD C8. And so I was finally, like, my old C8 had all sorts of star issues. It was not a flat field. This is. So I finally could get the two of these framed together. So it was one of the first targets I went after I got that telescope a few months ago. The Derelict group is named off of an exit off of Blue Ridge Parkway, I think, up in the mountains, where some astronomers stopped to go do some observing and discovered this group of galaxies. So they named it after the exit on the highway, because why not? I've seen the larger galaxy there through a telescope, so that's pretty cool. And then my last one is actually a star. Wolf-Rayet 134 is in the middle of this mess. So it's a class of star that is extremely, a lot of radiation and really high winds. It's approximately 10 times the diameter of our sun and 400,000 times as luminous. And because of that radiation and the winds, it's actually pushing the nebulosity away from it. So you can see there's kind of a ring of this blue, which is the oxygen 3. I was trying to get 40 hours total on oxygen 3 because I put 10 hours into it, which seems like a lot, but it's very faint. And I stacked it, and it was just a hot mess. It was very messy, very noisy, and very faint. So I decided to just put as much time as I could. And it's now at sundown. This target is behind some trees from where I imaged, so I was done with it. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. And it's color stars, so RGB stars for the stars. And I'm probably about out of time too. And yep. All right.
Okay, just a reminder for everybody, just please move quickly. And all right, Chris Whittam, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go for it.
Okay. Okay, so I've got a couple of pictures of the comet. So here's on October the 23rd. Next. And a little bit better I got on November the 5th. And so, just trying to play around. Not sure why mine showed up as so yellow, but it might be some coloration I need to work on. Next. So this, I put in about 8 hours. The actual real image looks a little bit better than this. I think there's a little bit of loss here, but yeah, no, it's one of the better galaxy pictures I took this year. And this is with a 4-inch refractor. Next. Now this is the Black Eye Galaxy. Now this one I did with the C11, and the challenge of this obviously is the long focal length, and it's a small galaxy, so put in about 5 or 6 hours into this. Next. Horse, classic one. I hadn't done this one before, and This is just a modified DLSR, which is what I used for all the pictures this year. Next. The Lagoon and Triffid. It's a nice, just barely was able to fit both of those in. And, especially like the contrast, if you have different emission nebulas and reflection nebulas and dark nebulas, all that, showing up here. Okay, next. And the M13, and you have a little galaxy there. And just not quite being able to see the color in there, but it's very close to it. Next. And about every year I try to see how well I can do the Pleiades, and so this year got a little bit better on being able to get some of the browner dust clouds in there to start actually seeing some more nebulosity to it. Next. And this one, you're actually, a funny thing is missing a little bit of it. So in the full picture, you're not only seeing the Cone Nebula and the Christmas tree cluster. I've got, when you look at the full picture, Hubble's Variable Nebula actually shows up here. So you can get a lot of different interesting types of nebula right in this little region. Next. Now, to another little interesting cluster here. This is, some people call it the owl cluster, the ET cluster. It's kind of rotated appropriately. So you can see the two eyes, the two brighter stars in the cluster, and you can kind of imagine hands and legs and all that. So it's just a cute little thing to see. Next. The California Nebula. Another one where it just turned out really well. You can't see it really well naked eye, or with a telescope, but you can image it very nicely. Next. And another galaxy, 2903. I was just trying to see what I could do this year with imaging galaxies and some other smaller. And so this is a nice little spiral galaxy. Next. And so this is, if you're looking at Cygnus, is one of the naked eye stars that makes up the swan itself, the Satyr. And, looking at it, I was noticing that there's a lot of beautiful nebulosity around there, especially, you can see some dark nebula along with it and a small cluster of stars. So there's a lot of different features that you can see right around here that you wouldn't expect. It almost looks like there's a flame lifting off of Satyr itself. Next. Now this one, so this was right around Halloween. And so there was a few things that, people were kind of talking about as different weird looking nebula this time of year. So, it almost looks like three different eyes. So those are some hot OB stars that are reflecting off of the surrounding nebula, but they're also lighting up everything else into that nice red color. Next. And continuing with the kind of Halloween theme, part of the Veil Nebula, the Witch's Broom part of it. So, and a lot of the stars that you get to see as you're looking through the Milky Way. And here's the North American Nebula also, so a lot of this stuff is in Cygnus and a lot of good stuff to see here. So this is my current year's rendition of that. Next. And, so you have the open cluster, M52, easy to see with a telescope, but then you got the bubble nebula. Could probably use a lot more time with it, or a much longer focal length to really get some detail on that bubble. But it's a very interesting feature. Next. And there's a couple open clusters here, M46 and M47. Kind of neat to see, especially when you're looking at it through a telescope. But what's really nice is that you can actually see a planetary nebula in one of these open clusters on the bottom right. Next. There you go.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Mark, you there?
I'm here. Get
How
myself
do you
off of mute.
do?
Okay.
All right.
So this first photo is of the area around Open Cluster M11, a really rich open cluster. Looks great in a telescope. But I was going for the nebulosity, or not the nebulosity, but all the stars in the dark nebulosity around it. So this is the area of scutum. And my software that I used to process the picture told me that there were over 25,000 stars in this particular picture. So it was kind of neat. And by the way, I forgot to mention that almost all the pictures I'm going to show tonight, I got with my new William Optics Red Cat 61 millimeter telescope with a 300 millimeter focal length. So I did a lot of revisiting old objects with a wider field of view this year. So anyway, this photo is 30 minutes taken from my front yard, as is most everything I'm going to do. Next. This is the Cygnus Loop, again with the Red Cat. I was able to get the whole veil complex here. So you have the western veil on the right, the eastern veil on the left, and then Pickering or Fleming's triangle, whichever you want to call it, in the middle. And so I shot this 90 minutes on the narrowband side and 8 minutes on the broadband side. The 8 minutes is for the stars, and the 90 minutes was for the nebula itself. And I shot this for our quarterly challenge. And because of the comet popping in, I was out photographing the comet the night of the meeting, so I never got to present this as part of the quarterly imaging challenge. Okay, next. Oh, this got out of order. Okay. This is the North American Nebula and the Pelican Nebula. So this is again similar to the previous picture. I shot this 75 minutes of narrowband and then 5 minutes of broadband. The broadband for the stars, the narrowband for the nebula. I never had a really good picture of this, and the Red Cat is doing a really nice job. I had previously attempted this with a telephoto lens. Okay. This is my my view of Comet 2023 A3. This was the first time I got to shoot it with my astrophoto rig. I had managed to shoot it a number of times out at the Crabtree Lake near where I live, but due to the circumstances where it's low altitude, I was never really able to get set up and do that. So these previously I just shot camera on tripod kind of things. For this one, this is the first time I got to set up the mount and the Red Cat, and was able to get a fairly close up on the comet itself, as well as being able to see the anti-tail on the right. And this comet was so big that I only got about half of it with this particular view. Okay. And this is my view of the aurora. The way we heard about this thing is my wife had some friends on Facebook, and they said, "Oh, there's an aurora out tonight." So I rushed out, got my camera and tripod and wide angle lens, and stood out in the street in front of my house and shot the northeastern sky. And this is what I got. So this is with a 16 millimeter lens on my Canon camera. And so this is like 800 ISO, 8-second picture. And this was the best of a whole bunch of them that I shot. It would have been nice to have a nice wide angle view like Johnny had, but I'm kind of relegated to my home base these days. Okay. And this, I just shot this a couple of weeks ago. This is my latest attempt at the Pleiades. I was going for not just the star cluster, but I was mostly going for the nebulae, the dark nebulae, around the cluster. So I wanted to keep the exposure such that I could still see the Seven Sisters plainly, but capture some of the dust that's pervasive around this thing. So I ended up shooting this for, excuse me, for 2 hours. And again, this is from my front yard with my red cat. Okay. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mark. Marshall Sweet, you're here. Let me get the mic. Is it on? All right, there you go, my friend. Take it away.
Do I get to control the laptop? Just say next or? All right. Ooh, wow, that's hot. All right, this is the Horsehead Nebula, obviously. Pretty common target, as already mentioned. This is shot with the 80 millimeter refractor that I have, and this was using the 533 MC, the color version. Yeah, that's all I gotta say about that one. Next. All right, this is the Rosette Nebula with the same rig, 80 millimeter refractor with the 533 MC. This object gave me a lot of trouble in processing. It was a chore to get rid of the noise in this, and I couldn't figure out why, but I kind of left it like this. Don't look too closely at it, otherwise the noise might get to you. But I had to research a little bit of this object and look to see like what is going on in this picture. It turns out those 6 brightest stars in the nebula are in fact responsible for the nebula, which I thought was kind of cool. So yeah, all right, next. I do not remember what they are called. Oh. All right, this is M13 globular cluster and Hercules, shot with the C9.25, again with the 533 MC. I had shot this the previous year with the 80 millimeter refractor, and I was like, okay, I had the big scope. Let's see what it looks like in here. And turns out you can see even more stars when you zoom even farther in. So I thought this was a pretty cool shot. I'm not super a big fan of like, you know, the globular clusters, but yeah, it turned out pretty cool. And like I said, I like this picture a lot. All right, next. All right, this is the Heart of the Heart Nebula. I think it's a lot. I don't know how you'd even pronounce it, but it's the other M15, if you want to call it that. This is 60 hours of integration time with, that's nothing compared to Naveen, but you know.
Okay. Yeah, so everybody,
uh,
I don't know, is my mic on?
yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. So just for the people that are here and at home who may not be super familiar with how we image these deep sky objects where we require very long integration times or long exposures. Yeah, obviously we don't stay up for 60 hours because, well, there's no such thing as a 60-hour night. So we image these over a period of several nights.
Yes.
I think the longest I've ever done is 15 hours. So more power to you, Mr. Sweet.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just lose track of how much you shot it at, and then you pull it up into Pix inside the integrator, and you're like, oh, whoops, okay, well, that works, I guess. So yeah, a lot of integration time. This is Hubble palette, SHO, narrowband filters with the 533 monochrome. So yeah. All right, moving on. All right, this is again another classic, the Eagle Nebula M16. I was a little disappointed with how this one turned out with the C9.25. So like I said, this is another shot with the C9.25 with the color. I only got 4 hours integration on this. I really wanted to get more, but this one kind of goes in between the trees of my house, and that's as much as I got. And it turned out okay, but again, don't look too close because you might see some not so pretty things, but it was good enough to share. So yeah. All right. Funny story about this one, as Naveen might remember. This was the image that I shot for the Supernova Remnant imaging challenge, only to realize that it's not technically a supernova remnant. It is just a planetary nebula, which I was mistaken on. Anyway, so this is the Dumbbell Nebula. Again, shot with a C9.25. This was shot with the monochrome, but with broadband filters, RGB. LRGB. I did use the luminance for this. I was hoping to get more of the, for those of you who have seen better images of this object, you would know that it's kind of got like these angel wings sort of off to the side, and you can kind of see them faintly there. I did get a little bit of that, but I couldn't push it too much farther than that without bringing out a ton of noise. So I settled for that, and I still think it looks pretty good. So, all right, thanks. Next. All right, this is M33. This was shot with the 80 millimeter refractor, again with the 533 MC. This object, when I started processing this, I just went through all like the little tiny bits in the galaxy. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing how much you can see in a galaxy without being in the galaxy, which I think is really funny. So I think it's NGC 602 is the bright nebula in the bottom left of the galaxy at about the 7 o'clock position. It's so bright that it almost looks like a star, even though it's technically a nebula. So Hubble also has a close-up of that nebula as well, which is also pretty interesting. But again, just lots of really cool, like tiny details when you look closely at some of these galaxies, especially this one that's nearby. But this was shot again with the 533 MC, so no filter except for the UV IR cut. Scope was the 80 millimeter refractor. Yeah. All right, next. All right. Also, again, with the Astrotech 80 millimeter with the 533 MC, the Orion Nebula. When I processed this, I wanted to, and you see a lot of images of this where the core is super, intricate and elaborate, but I just kind of wanted to leave it blown out. I mean, maybe not blown out technically, but I kind of wanted it to look really bright, like you would kind of see it in the eyepiece. So now, technically, if you zoom in, you can still see the trapezium stars there, but I kind of wanted it to just have that kind of bright, glowing look like you would see in the eyepiece. So, all right, next. All right, M51 Whirlpool Galaxy. This is 16 hours of integration, which is still pretty good number. Again, with the 533 MC and the C9.25. Yeah, just cool looking galaxy. Next. The Ring Nebula, M57, also shot with a C9.25. I think this image is an exercise, and no matter how good focal length you have, you just can't get enough focal length on some of these planetary nebulae. They're just too small. So you need a bigger telescope like, James Webb or something. But all right, next. All right, this one was also just like a whoopsie daisies. I have a whole bunch of data on this object. So there was several nights in April where I would just leave the telescope running, and it didn't really have much else to point at during a certain time of the night. So I just pointed it here. And then after, again, compiling all the data, it turned out to be like 20 hours or something like that. The Leo triplet. So yeah, I would like to get a little bit more blue in the Hamburger Galaxy, but I'll take it. All right, this is the Milky Way over Goose Bay, which is near Harker's Island, near the coast. This is my first kind of wide field shot, and I would love to have the opportunity to do more like it. I'm very jealous of Johnny Horne's work, I must say, and still turned out pretty well. The skylights on the horizon there gave me all sorts of lovely issues when processing this image, but I like it. This was shot, with a Canon T3i and the 14 millimeter wide angle lens. All right, next. This was a test shot with the C9.25 and narrowband filters. So I just kind of threw it together. It was like an hour's worth of data or something like that. I was like, oh, wow, that turned out pretty good. So here it is. I want to call it the Brain Nebula, but you might know it as the Crescent Nebula. There is a Brain Nebula too, not to be confused with the real Brain Nebula, but all right, next. All right, this is NGC 7380, the Wizard Nebula, also in SHO with the C9.25, 2 panels stacked side by side. Okay. I didn't realize I had these many. Oh, that was it. Yeah, okay. Perfect. All right, thanks.
All right, there he is, Jim Perticante. Take it away.
So this is my Orion from back in January.
Hold on, Jim.
Oh, good. All right, this is my Orion from back in January. I joined the imaging club back in 2019. I went to my first meeting. I was so proud of a picture I had taken. I had 20 seconds with a DSLR on Orion, and I had it in a USB in my pocket. And everyone started putting up their images, and that USB stayed in my pocket. So now, 5 years later, a little bit more about what I'm doing, and I have some better equipment. And so this is with a 70 millimeter refractor, 350 millimeter focal length, and astro-cooled monocamera. And what I did with this one is I did the detail all using the narrowband wavelengths, mostly HA, And then I shot RGB for the color. So I got a true color, but I got all the detail using the narrowband. All right, next. There's my eclipse photo. I had a nice plan to go to Uvalde, Texas and watch the eclipse. And as the week went on, as we got closer and closer, it looked like that wasn't going to work. So all the clouds coming, going to the places they weren't supposed to be and not in the places they usually are. So instead of Uvalde, I drove to Burlington, Vermont, which is about as far as I could get to the Northeast. And so my friend up in Burlington was nice enough to let me crash at his house and take some pictures from his pool. That's my eclipse photo there. And then I made a composite photo showing different phases. And I recently printed this one out and it's now hanging above my coffee machine at home. I also gave one to my friend for letting me use his house. All right, next. Here's a comet photo that's looking out basically over Glenwood. Went to my mother-in-law's porch on her apartment and set up the iPhone on a tripod and took pictures with it. And I can't remember if this is one where I combined, yeah, I think I took shots through the DSLR, and so I composited the comet from that, but just kind of overlaid it on the iPhone image. Next. Here's the comet through the DSLR. I don't remember the focal length. I can't remember if I was using the 200mm lens or the 135 on this one, but you see a little bit of the anti-tail on that. And for this one, I was up at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia, shooting out over the water. Next. Hope that'll play.
That should play.
It'll play.
No?
Oh, for the aurora, this was the October aurora. I was up in Virginia again, and I set the DSLR with a wide-angle lens up on the dock, and I just took a series of about 750 exposures and stitched them together in a time lapse. So imagine the green is moving and the red is moving. You just kind of picture, but anyway, it's kind of fun. And see if it'll. All right, it's on Astrobin too. We can get on that. Okay. All right, and because everyone's showing M51, I had to show my M51. You gonna try to do it on there now? So this is again using that 70mm scope and the AstroCool cam. Got some hydrogen alpha to show some of the cool nebula in there. It's another one that I like to come back to every year and see what I can do differently. Mostly the same stuff. Right. And I was copying Marshall a lot, apparently. I want to shoot everything he shot.
The other way around.
So this is my Eagle Nebula. This is in narrow band, so you get all the false colors with the SHO palette. Again, with that same 70mm scope and the after-cooled cam. Next. Then there's M15 with Galactic Cirrus. So I'm slowly working my way through all the Messier objects, trying to capture them all. But as I do it, like each one, I want to go better and better. So like this one, I ended up getting, I don't remember just how many hours this was, 20 hours or so, because I wanted to catch that Galactic Cirrus. So M15 is outside the plane of the Milky Way, either above the Milky Way or below, depending on what your perspective is. But because you're outside of the plane, you get these very faint dust clouds that are basically being illuminated by the Milky Way itself. They're not like reflection nebula where they're being illuminated by stars. It's actually the combined light of the Milky Way lights up these dust clouds. And so if you point the camera up there long enough, you can start to pick them up. There's actually some nice hydrogen alpha up there too. But the 10 hours I captured wasn't enough. I'd probably have to go to 20 or 30 hours of hydrogen alpha to begin to show some of that. And there's a photo on Astrobin recently where someone did O3, and it turns out there's a really nice O3 area in the same general vicinity. So if you put another 30 hours O3 in there, you get a heck of a photo in this area. All right, is that it? There you go.
All right, everybody. Yeah, so to all of our imagers, thank you for your participation. I probably should have added on an extra slide here, but yes, we're the Raleigh Astronomy Club, imaging groups. So anybody who's taken an interest in just imaging in general, whether or not you want to get into it or just see all the magic that you saw here tonight, and how do we do it and whatnot. We do have our an imaging meeting every month, and it's kind of weird how it's scheduled. The best way I can describe it, it is the next Thursday after the second Friday of the month. So that's the best way I can describe it to you. So if you could remember that, good for you. If not, just always go to the club website and you'll see it up on the calendar there of when we'll have it. But anyway, what I'll do later, I guess. Oh, did you get Jim's time lapse? Yeah. Did you get it? No, it was supposed to be the time lapse. That's the link I emailed you or texted you. Better.
Okay.
See where
That's fine. Yeah, just click on there. It'll be.
Oh.
Why did you put all those? There we go.
Okay, very well done, Jim. Yeah, sorry that didn't go through very well. Anyways, yeah, okay, so good. But anyway, yeah, just going back to what I said that we meet every month. Just check out the club website when we meet. Been kind of behind a lot of things these days and forgot to really pick out a target challenge for January. So I might as well go ahead and announce it here. Hopefully I'll be able to remember to post it on groups.io/Yahoo email or whatever. But I think the target challenge we want to do this year is, and you can't cheat, Naveen, because you already did the Crab Nebula. So the constellation Taurus, okay, which is packed with lots of clusters and whatnot. And no, you cannot go into Auriga, even though Taurus and Auriga share a star together. So no Auriga, just Taurus only. And you can do the Pleiades as many times as you want. So yeah, once again, thank you to the imagers, and yeah, we'll see what you guys get in December 2025.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chris.